voy a llamar.
Parece que la ave tenga para llegar, así que ya se veía a veces.
Uno parece a uno y diga, te doy 5 pavos si me llegas a mí.
Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. And peace and blessings be multiplied on all you brethren out there pushing this word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the 144,000, and the rest of the men, women, and children that will receive mercy from the Lord in these last days. I'm the brother Dama Gabar here with another lesson. The Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Yahweh Shai. All right. And as you can see, hey, these elites, they're at it again. All right. And we know this whole situation is to bring more chaos, more confusion. All right. And we know that this is the plan of the elites, because going back to those WEF meetings, you had Klaus Schwab talking about the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack. All right. Which could basically cut out all power across, the whole country. You see, but now what? We know that in Spain and Portugal, hey, this is nothing more than a test run. And you've been seeing this happening quite frequently over there in Brazil and Cuba, or one of those South American countries. They've been having their power, shut off for days, and we know that in the midst of that situation, it causes panic and chaos and confusion. And this is something that these elites ultimately want to use as a way to bring in this new world order. And see, and this is why the scriptures say that we are not ignorant of Satan's devices, man. And this is why we know, as we get closer to the end, hey, this is definitely on the agenda of these elites to bring in ultimately this new digital beast system. All right, this can be an excuse for them to say, oh, the infrastructure is so fragile, it's so weak, it's vulnerable, it's this, it's that, it's just all going to be an excuse and a form of deception to get people to take the MOTB, and also to drive more and more chaos and confusion, and really to let you people, devour one another until they can come with a new plan and a new system in place to where all these situations can be handled and fixed. But we know through the spirit is going to come with an MOTB, with a micro C hip, man. But as you can see, it says Spain, Portugal power outages, live updates, countries hit with massive blackouts affecting travel and commuting. You see, and this is a way that they can just halt society, And they're already talking about, more and more food shortages. You see the situation happening with these tariffs. They're already telling you that empty shelves are on the way. Less imports and less goods are going to be brought in. And this can be another way that they could totally just, like I said, bring society to a screeching halt. No food coming in, no water coming in, no daily amenities that you might need, could be so readily available, which could lead to famine, sedition, invading one another, desperation, and just more and more chaos. So brothers, we got to be wise and smart, and we're seeing how Esau is moving. This is why it's always important to always make sure you have your daily essentials stocked up in your house. Now, I'm not telling you to prep and build a bunker downstairs somewhere, but this is why, I know, like me in my house, we always go to the place with the water. I got the 5-gallon water gallons, and I try to make sure every week that those things are always full, man. I probably go through about 2 a week, and I have like 4 other ones just there. I try to make sure every week that always are continuously filling those things up every week and keeping them full, so that at all times, for the most part, there's always at least a certain amount of that all my 5-gallon waters are always full. Because you just never know when a situation like this could happen. And this is how Esau is going to do this thing. It's going to come out of nowhere. Because you can see, the video I showed you, all those people were just going about their daily business on the train, traveling, commerce. But you see how in an instant, all that shit just came to a complete screeching halt, man. See, and this is why, you got to have things prepared. We got to, being in this truth, we know what this devil is up to. This is why we got to be, not in the dark and not moving in a way where these things can totally just catch us off guard. Because we know ultimately what the end goal of all this shit is. We know what this devil is up to, but we need to make sure that we're as prepared as humanly possible. Because we know that the darkness and plagues as Egypt as before is coming to Babylon the Great. We know a day is going to come to where the power grid is going to be shut off, and we're going to just be out here in complete, darkness, especially at the nighttime with no power, no electricity, no internet, no telecommunications, no way to get on buses and transit, and the gas pumps would be shut off. So, you got to make sure that when these days do come, that you're somewhat prepared. If in case you got to just get up and go, maybe you have to hop in the car and travel to a particular place. You have gas in the car, so when the power is off, there ain't gonna be no gas readily available. Just being somewhat prepared, and we know everything else is going to be in the hands of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But as we can see, hey man, these devils are about to start really, really moving, especially I believe as you get closer to the summer here in the States, we're going to start seeing more of these type of situations happening. But we know what these devils are up to. But in the meantime, this is First Thessalonians 5:1. It says, "But of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." You see? And that's how it was in this situation. Like I said, it was just a normal day. Everybody was just out and about doing what they were doing until all of a sudden the whole damn power grid went out. And what? People were stuck. People were wherever they were at. They were just stuck there, couldn't move. Because I think over there in Spain and Portugal, like they rely now. Some people, not I don't think not everybody there has cars. They rely on the transit, for transportation for the most part. And when that power went out, a lot of those people that was down in those tunnels and taking the subway, they were just stranded. They were walking the tracks and it was pitch black, and they were had to just get off the train or wherever they were underground and just come up because what they couldn't move, man. You see, it says a huge. Well, let me finish this, and I'm gonna come to this article. It says, "But ye brethren are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober." You see. And like I said, and us being sober minded, we understand why things like this are happening. And it's never going to be for the reasons that they say. They might say, oh, it's a possible cyber attack. No, these cyber attacks, are going to be self-inflicted. And like I said, and they'll bring a cyber attack and they can easily just blame whoever the hell they want to blame for the cyber attacks, whether that's true or not. But we know ultimately it's going to be a self-inflicted situation because we know what they're trying to accomplish. We know they want chaos. They want fear. They use these things for psychological operations to work on the minds of you people to get you so terrified and afraid and so confused that you'll be willing to give up a lot of your rights and to give up a lot of your freedoms for a sense of protection, especially when, they shut out the power for weeks or even months and all hell is just breaking loose. That sedition, the power of everybody's, when it's just a dog eat dog world situation, so to speak, because I guarantee you if the power goes out for weeks on end or even months, man, we know what these people, especially these American people, what they're going to resort to: complete violence and anarchy and carnage and chaos, invading one another, and just complete, Black Friday. A Black Friday behavior on steroids, man. And this is what these elites ultimately want. Because why? They're going to come to bring the order out of all of the chaos, man. So, us being in this truth, we can't be sleep as these ordinary regular jakes because we see why they would cause a situation like this to happen. All right. But these people out here, hey, they don't have a clue. That's why when, they use these type of things to bring out that MOTB, these people are going to be jumping over one another to get their micro C hip and to align themselves with this new beast system for some form of peace and safety. So it says what to know. It says a huge power outage is affecting large parts of Spain and Portugal today, including both countries' capitals, Madrid and Lisbon, according to various reports and official accounts. Airports have been disabled, and shops and offices are in the dark. It is unclear how many people have been affected. Parts of France were also briefly hit, you see, because this is also, they want to see how the people react, you know. It says the Spanish government is holding an emergency meeting in Madrid. Getting Spain's power network back online could take up to 10 hours, the power grid operator has warned. And remember, this is going to affect a lot of people, especially if you have food in a refrigerator. You can, if your power is out for 10 days and the food in that ice box or in your freezer starts to go bad, hey, whatever you have in there is going to go completely to waste. And what if you don't have the money to go and replace all of those, all of that meat and food and eggs and things of that nature that was wasted due to a lack of electricity and that stuff remaining cold? You see? It says the Spanish power company Red Electrica said in a post on X that it was gradually recovering power in the north of the Iberian Peninsula. So it says, well, so far, no indications of a cyber attack, so they say. But we know how these devils operate, man. It says grid operations in both countries are working on finding the cause and restoring the electricity supply. At this point, there are no indications of any cyber attack. What else they got? Look, restoring hours could take up to 10 hours. Look at this guy. He's just sitting in the dark, And what do you think is going to happen? Right now it's kind of new, so people aren't really panicking too much. But what do you think is going to happen to a store like that after it's been about maybe a day or 2 or 3 of a power outage? That store would be ransacked. Those things would be bare. The glass be broken. People would get desperate and people would resort to their more baser nature. You see, it says shopper loses a flashlight on his phone at a supermarket today in Trim, Spain. Oh, remember too, when the whole power grid goes out, the banks are not going to be functioning. Your ATM card is not going to work. Any form of digital transaction is going to be obsolete, man. And this is why also, which I need to do a better job of this as well. Brothers need to start always having some type of cash on hand, because once that digital, once the grid goes down, hey, your digital transactions are no longer going to be accepted. So it'll be in your best interest to try to keep a little bit of cash on hand in situations like this. All right, look at these people. The passengers stand next to a stopped high-speed AVE train today. Look at this. They're told not to travel to passports or airports. Look, see, and when this happens, hey, wherever you're at, you're stuck there. There ain't no leaving. There ain't no getting on a plane. There ain't no hopping on a train. And people are going to hop in their cars, but like it showed you on that video, hey, it's going to be bumper to bumper traffic, man. They even showed you that on that movie, Leave Tomorrow Behind. Remember when the family that got on the freeway and they was trying to drive out of wherever they were at to go back into the city? All those cars was just piled up all over the freeway, man. You're really going to be wherever you're at is where you're going to be for the time being, man. And this is why we're constantly stressing the importance of repentance and returning back to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So when these situations arise and get to the point of complete chaos and all hell breaking loose, we got the hedge and the protection of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai to be with us, while the rest of these people are going to be out here just, running around like a chicken with their head cut off, man. You see, it says what? To keep the roads clear. You see? I asked all residents of Madrid to keep their movement to an absolute minimum and if at all possible, to remain where they are. We want to keep all the roads clear. He added that traffic lights and street lights were out across the city and some road tunnels have been closed. Look at this. Even the Madrid Open tennis thing was canceled, was put on hold, I guess. It could be a result of a cyber attack, blah, blah, blah. But as we know, and during the daytime, it's a little bit less crazy. But wait till nighttime come. If that power ain't on, you're going to have a lot of people with sticky fingers, a lot of a criminal element of Spain and Portugal that's going to, try to get some shit, man, get some free shit. It might be a purge situation, it might be some of that Diego time happening, You see? So look at this. They're completely in the dark over there, man. He walks through a darkened food market. What else? Has left parts of Spain and Portugal in the dark. Traffic lights, airplanes. Let's see, look at that. See how the freeway is all completely jam packed. Can't nobody get anywhere, man. You see, and you know that the gas pumps aren't working. And they said what? And they got a population of 50 million. So imagine after days and weeks and even months of being in that stagnant situation, just how crazy shit is going to be, man. See, and this is why we got to constantly be ready and be prepared, because shit like this is going to start happening here in the West, in a major way. All right. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. You see, and that whole situation is nothing more than the trickery and the wiles of the devil. All right. It says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. All right. And like we say all the time, this is a very spiritual war. This is a spiritual battle. But Esau is going to make it to the point to where it's going to start to get very physical with things of this nature. Them destroying the power grid, them creating manufactured famines. This whole situation with this Trump and this tariff things, these things are all being done intentionally, man, as a way to further, destroy this system, to implode the economy, ultimately to bring in, less goods and services, which can lead to famine, which can lead to scarcity. And ultimately what? More confusion, more perplexity, more, more, psychological operations, and the people are going to be mostly physically and mentally affected by these things as it gets worse and worse. Because like I said, these devils have a plan. These things are not just happening by coincidence. They're not just happening by chance. All right. This is a lot of spiritual wickedness and dark play and sorcery at work. You see, but if you're just, not in the know and you're not in the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, you're not going to take these things with a spiritual eye. You're not going to really be able to fully understand why these things are taking place. And when these devils do these things to get the desired results, you are going to be taken in them. All right. Because you're not really, understanding how this man is really operating and how he's setting you up and setting a snare and a trap for your soul to bring you into this MOTB system. Verse 13, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. You see, because what scriptures tell you, be circumspect, because these days are evil. You got to be looking all around. You got to be paying attention to things like this. Because I tell you what, you ask the average Negro, Latino, or Native American here in America or in the hood, did they hear about what happened to Spain and Portugal? They're going to be like, nigga, I don't give a fuck about that shit, nigga. And I ain't heard nothing. What that got to do with me? You see, because Jake is Jake is a very carnal-minded individual. Jake don't see things like this or things that are happening around the world, and they're under the mind frame of, that's far away. I ain't thinking about that. That ain't gonna happen here. We in America. But little do they know. All right. So therefore, hey, man, we got to have this whole armor on, man, at all times. It says, stand therefore having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And you got a lot of these Jakes, especially in these last days, that is coming up against the truth, bucking up against, the doctrine of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. They're under the impression that the white man ain't the devil, and we're a cult, and we're a hate group, and we're out here spewing nonsense. We don't know what we're talking about. Love, love, love. Hey, those guys are totally unprepared, and they're totally, don't have the armor of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. And that's why when these things fully come in their perfection, these Jakes are going to be steamrolled, man. All right. And guess what? We ain't going to cry or shed a tear for any of them, because, they mocked and scoffed at the prophets and at this truth and at the doctrine of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So they're going to get everything that they deserve, man. It says, in your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, and above all, taking the shield of faith. Right. And that's what these Jakes don't have. They don't have no faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So like I said, when these things really get heightened and they're at their most critical, Jake's faith is not going to be in trusting in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. It's going to be in trusting in Jesus and in the white man and in this system and in the shadow of Egypt, man. And it's going to lead them all to getting micro C-hipped and getting destroyed by Yahweh Shai and the holy angels and burnt with nuclear fire, man. It says, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation. Right. And Jake's salvation, they're not looking at salvation coming from the Lord, being beamed up in the chariots, being taken up out of this situation. Their faith is in this, like I said, this system and Esau, and taking that MOTB and gold and silver and money and cash and guns and prepping or whatever else carnal thing they have their hope of salvation in. And for a lot of Jake is going to be in the so-called white man and taking that micro C hip, man. You see? But for us, it's going to be in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? It says, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. You see? And that's where our minds is going to be, all right? In Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But as we can see, hey, these devils are getting ready to come with it. And this is not going to be the last you're going to see of these so-called blackouts and grid outages, man. We know this is a huge part of these elites' way of luring you people into this NWO. And as we get closer into the summer, I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to start happening more and more here in the States. Like I said, it's been happening over there in Cuba and Brazil and a lot of South American countries where they were just in complete darkness, where the power grid went out. Well, now we see it happen in Spain and Portugal. And hey, we'll soon to see it happening here in the States, man. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Until the next one, shalom.